amazing panelists who are going to give us some of their tips and tricks for how we can all lean in and join the fight. Like hell. Sponsored. Okay. And particularly, we want to spend some time thinking about how do we build people power in a way that's sustainable for the movement, sustainable for individuals, grounded in community, and actually moves change. So I just want to say a few things. When we talk about community leader, we're not just talking about someone who's loud online, or someone who goes to Tallahassee, or someone who goes to the White House or Congress. Those are all options and many incredible advocacy skills. But we're talking about something broader and bigger. We're talking about people, like everyone here, who are rooted in community, who have lived experience, who are building relationships, who are telling stories, and who are finding ways, big and small, to fight for systems change. And particularly recognizing the moment we are in, where our differences feel so huge and polarizing. What are the tools that we can learn to bring people in, to remember that each of us has our story, and how do we use those stories collectively to fight for change? And also just want to reiterate something you said, as was said before, advocacy is a team sport. Yeah. And I personally feel, and I feel like many people do, that particularly right now where everything feels so fraught, we all feel that burden on ourselves. It's easy to burn out, it's easy to not know what to do and just sit paralyzed. And so what can we learn from each other for how to lean on our respective skills and timing and space to build the best team sport and team we can be. So I want us to take everything with that lens today. Okay, but I want to get a quick sense of who's in the room, because we could all talk for a while, and there's many angles with which we could share information, and I want to see how the audience feels about things. So how many people, if you could show your hands, and if that's uncomfortable for you to move your arm that way, you could tap the person next to you to raise their other arm, that would be wonderful. How many of you have ever participated in any formal advocacy training program? Okay, that's a solid amount. That looks like more than 50%. I'm not a mathematician. How many people here have met with a state legislator, whether in district or in Tallahassee? Okay. See, this might be good to know, because it could be just talking about Tallahassee 101, and you're like, we've done that, that's a waste of my hour. How many of you would say that you see yourself as part of the organizer or advocacy community? That's amazing. And for those who don't, that's also very okay. I've been doing this work for a while, and I still feel uncomfortable with calling myself an organizer or an advocate. Sometimes I'm feeling like, well, I don't know everything, so how can I say that? And I'm not an expert in these things, but I want us to all leave today feeling like we are all organizers, we are all advocates, and we don't need to mobilize 3 million people to fight for change. If you are organizing your few, 3, 5, 20, 30, whatever that number is, and using some of the skills from these amazing individuals, that's really powerful, particularly right now, to build that local power. Okay. How many of you, by show of hands, are actively trying to bring more people into this fight? I want to see some more hands. How many people here want to bring more people into the fight for health? Thank you. that was a lot more. Yeah, even shake your hands, because that's really exciting. That's why we're all here. Okay. So I'm hoping that this conversation makes these points feel real and usable. And particularly, each of our amazing panelists are here because they have developed trainings on leadership and advocacy programs that empower community members to become community leaders and catalysts for systems change. And particularly when we're thinking about who do we want to bring in the work, I want everyone to remember that we don't need to start from scratch. When you're thinking about an advocacy training, whether you want to attend one or build one yourself, these are amazing models to pull from. It can feel incredibly overwhelming to start from scratch, and that's not needed, and that's a waste of your time. So how can we all cross-collaborate? So, without further ado, I want to introduce this group of panelists who each bring a different skill to the ecosystem, and I want you to share that. So, Stacey is working closely or part of Partners in Policy Making programming, and you can share more about that. Rachel bringing deep experience from Catalyst Miami, and Nicole bringing the perspective of someone who actually went through some of these trainings themselves and have now turned that into real advocacy and organizing. So we have 3 different perspectives, all very important and unique. So we'll get started. Stacey, do you want to give a quick rundown of your program? I know there's a brochure on some of the tables, so just to ground us in what you do.
Yeah, so on some of your tables, you'll see a flyer for the Florida Partners in Policy Making Program. So my name is Stacey Hogan. I am the proud mom of a 31-year-old who has autism. And like many of us, you have a personal connection to the reason that you're here, right? Whether you work in it, you volunteer in it, you live inside of it, so somewhere you have that personal connection. I run the Partners in Policy Making Program for the Florida Developmental Disabilities Council for 12 years. I've been an educational advocate for 26. I was the president of the Autism Society of Florida for a decade. And I think what sums up so much of what I have been teaching of what we're here for is yesterday, Wendell Fowler said, don't wait for them to do the right thing, they won't. And that is really why I do what I do, and I'm sure why most of you do what you do. So thank you.
Similar words never been spoken. So I'm Rachel Prestipino. I'm the Vice President of Policy and Community Engagement with Catalyst Miami. Catalyst was founded in 1996, originally as the Human Services Coalition. So it was a group of service providers that were coming together and saying, we can do more than just provide a service. We can advocate for those services to improve. I got very involved with welfare reform at the time, and it was founded by a person who is now mayor of Miami-Dade County, Danielle Lamicava. Shout out. And so essentially from those early stages, there was an idea that we would be pairing services and advocacy together. And then as they started getting into what the advocacy would really look like, there was this understanding that it would require developing grassroots leaders, that would be the way to make most effective change locally and at the statewide level, and even federally at some points in Catalyst history. And so some of the earliest leadership programs were developed then. It's gone through many iterations in Catalyst history, so our most recent suite of leadership programs is very intersectional. We're always looking at healthcare from position of healthcare access as an economic justice issue, because as Catalyst, again, has kind of molted its feathers over the years and redefined itself, currently thinking of ourselves as a climate and economic justice organization that's working so that people in Miami-Dade County can afford to live and stay in Miami-Dade County for many generations to come, which is becoming increasingly hard for so many reasons. And we know that healthcare access is foundational to economic justice because it is one of the most expensive things in that housing that we deal with, and it plunges people into debt. We work with a lot of folks in medical debt. So that's one lens on it, but because it's so intersectional, our leadership programs also focus on climate and housing, the impacts of environmental and justice issues on our health, the impacts of substandard housing conditions, and helping folks move into greater subject matter expertise, but also just building their own advocacy skills. And we've graduated about 800 folks in this iteration of leadership programs since 2016. So we'll get into that more.
Good morning. My name is Nicole Grabner. I am a graduate of the Partners in Policy Making Program. And, I'll just say that, for those who didn't hear yesterday, my husband and I were disabled veterans. We're parents to 2 disabled children. And honestly, my advocacy journey kind of sprung from that. I feel like a lot of parents probably have that same mentality. It's a lot easier to advocate for your children. I mean, nothing's gonna stop us fighting like that for our children. So, after my youngest was diagnosed, I entered this program and they give you a lot of tools, education, a community to kind of spring from. I noticed that a lot of our agencies, a lot of our nonprofits, a lot of our companies that work with people with disabilities in our state do amazing things within their silos, but they don't really work together, they don't really speak together, and if the speaking wheel gets loose, we really need to work on bringing our voices together. So that kind of pushed my advocacy forward. Brevard County, I started talking to a lot of different organizations, went to a lot of meetings, and I think almost laughable in a way that they said, "Oh, this is good, let's do it. You need to do it." And I really wasn't looking for that. I was honestly looking just to plug into somewhere that already existed. So now we have what's called the One Voice Coalition that it was founded and I'm the president of, and I'm also the founder director of what's called One Voice Brevard, that seeks to continue to build those communities, to build those alliances and collaborations so we can effectively advocate with one voice as much as possible. So.
Yes, thank you so much. What I've heard, particularly Nicole, what you just reiterated from the program that you went through, which is similar to other programs, is tools, education, and community. All things that I think all of us want to have those resources and feeling of solidarity and not being alone, particularly right now. And I really appreciate the 3 of you sharing some of the ways that you fit into the fight for health. And as our panelists are speaking, I want each person here to keep thinking about where do you fit in to the movement, because every single person here does, and we all bring a different ingredient. And if what these panelists are sharing feels like skills that you want to sharpen, please lean in, follow up with their resources, get involved in their campaigns. That's why they're here. So, Rachel and Stacey, can you please share a little bit of more information on a snapshot into the curriculum, the advocacy training curriculum you have? Particularly, how do you balance teaching technical skills in policy advocacy and organizing and relational community competence building skills?
Well, let me just start by saying, I'm so glad that you're actually physically here. Because while you may not really think that that matters, let me tell you, for 2 years during COVID, we moved from in-person to online. There is a drastic difference between the skill set that they gained, because there is so much benefit to being with other humans, to building relationships. And that, in fact, as somebody who has worked inside the disability field for 26 years, I will most definitely tell you that most of us, most of you sitting here, you know how you got your job? Because you knew someone, because you had relationships with someone. And for the disability community, sadly, that is also the reason why we have such a dismal employment rate, because they are not included. They do not receive the services that they need. They don't have access to, oftentimes, inclusive education, the best kind of programs, opportunities for employment, housing, transportation. And that is really what Partners in Policymaking educates. These are the people who get into the program, let me just put that caveat. So you either have to be a parent of a child with a developmental or intellectual disability, or an adult. So your child could be 42, and that's perfectly fine, and you come into the program, or self-advocates. And the parents in the room tremendously benefit by having self-advocates in the room, sharing their opinions, their personal experiences, how they felt in school, how they feel on the job, if they have a job. Many people enter the program with master's degrees, literally master's degrees, who have a disability and they do not have a job. And so through the program, we educate everyone on what your rights are. So what are those legal rights? Because we got plenty of those. And yesterday also, when the speaker said, we have plenty of laws in this country that are lockdown laws, but they're not really implemented. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, for example, when that law was written many decades ago, it was supposed to fund 40% special education across this country. We fluctuate between 10 and 12. So we got a law, but we see what it's doing. So in this program, we teach them what does the law say, how to advocate, how to build relationships, not just with each other, but with policymakers. Because as an advocate, I can tell you if I walk into a school and I'm gonna advocate for somebody and I'm on a big stick and I'm ready to pop some people over the head, they're not gonna want me to come back and I'm gonna leave that parent in a very hostile situation. I get to leave, but I want them to be there and have a better relationship because the advocacy took place. So our goal in partners is, yes, we're gonna give them the information that they need, but more than anything, it's about relationships. It's how to build relationships for policymakers and, which is really great for this crowd, how to know what these policymakers find important. Because when you understand how to advocate, you can take something that you know that they love, for example, Senator Albert, the Senate President, his thing is all about rural communities. And so if we can spin our healthcare topics and show Senator Albert how devastated some of our rural communities are when it comes to dental, to basic healthcare, that will influence him. Even though he may not love the whole money thing, he will be influenced because he's passionate about servicing people in rural communities. And so that's really what Partners is all about, and it's free. So it's a beautiful thing. It's funded federally. Each of the states receive money. So 47 of our 50-ish states receive funding from the federal government. We actually saw an increase a couple of years ago, so we have more money. But each Developmental Disabilities Council gets to decide what they're going to spend the money on. So 47 of the states have the program. And we had about 25 to 30 people each year. And yes, Nicole is one of our fabulous graduates of the program. And as we saw, she was recognized yesterday. So as you can imagine, as the person who runs the program, I was so proud to watch her take exactly what she learned in the program and just run with it. And the beauty of being able to run that program is I see that happen every year. And in fact, inside the disability community in Florida, if you see a really strong advocate, chances are really good. They are a graduate of the Partners in Policy program.
Awesome. So as I mentioned before, Catalyst has like a more intersectional suite of leadership programs, but the one in particular that I'll highlight that's most focused on health is LIGHT, Leaders in Grassroots Health Transformation. And it's very focused on Miami County specifically. Also the free program, open to anyone. When folks come with kids under 14, we do like a corollary youth program that they can be in alongside their parents. We can talk more about some of the things that make the program accessible, I think, later in the conversation. But the subject matter starts very broad, like how did our U.S. healthcare system come to be what it is today? How did we get into this situation? What are the money forces that drive this system? What actually is health? What does health mean to you? What are the social determinants of health? What makes us healthy? We start on that level and then kind of work our way to some of the most pressing issues around health in Florida, making sure that, when people graduate the program, that they can articulate, what Medicaid expansion means, that they know what their rights are when it comes to medical debt and how to navigate that system. They have a module specifically on that. I also want to shout out Florida Health Justice Project, Florida Policy Institute, obviously Florida Voices for Health, and so many partners in this room. I'm sure there's someone they'd like to mention who have been a part of as speakers or actually helping to co-develop the curriculum with us and bringing your knowledge and expertise. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for all of your contributions. But yeah, so starting kind of broad and then hitting in on specific issues. And of course, as you said, trying to balance, making sure that people are gaining some robust subject matter expertise, but also with deep relevance to their life and their lived experience and understanding how to harness the power of their story. So we through our programs, are always harnessing, kind of the Marshall Vance model of understanding first your story yourself. And making sure that, people are learning how to share the story, whether it's interpersonally in a one-on-one setting, trying to bring someone into our work, or in the context of maybe like a public comment or a meeting with a legislator or something like that. So that's one of the skills. And we're always trying to do our work through a popular education model so that, it's not didactic, like there's one teacher communicating the information to an audience of students, but that we're in a shared learning environment, and one of the ways that we do that is by making sure that the facilitators are past graduates of the program. So they're always speaking about their experience, and when they're serving that role as facilitator, they're welcoming in expertise from the group and from guest speakers and some of the folks and organizations I just mentioned, making sure that that's all viewed as important knowledge in the space. That's their role as facilitator. And of course, there's a lot of work that they're putting into that, so we're stipending folks for doing that work. And yeah, that's part of the balance, I think, of trying to make sure that folks are learning advocacy skills. There's a lot of, there's at least some advocacy and organizing 101, also helping to make sure folks can understand the difference between advocacy and community organizing, because I think those things can sometimes be conflated. If you're speaking on behalf of the community or an issue, that's advocacy, but actually organizing fellow residents to come out and speak on their own behalf and organize campaigns with a strategy and a specific demand and a target, that's organizing, and how those things work together, right? We need all these tool sets as we're developing leaders. Some folks will be more of a spokesperson type of role, right, where they're really comfortable sharing their story publicly, and others will be more of that that organizer that's bringing people alongside them. When we talk about leaders, if you're a leader and no one's following you, I think some folks have heard this adage: if you're a leader and no one's following you, you're just taking a walk, right? So that's what we're trying to help folks understand, is that you can get out and share your story and be so compelling, but if you're never bringing anyone else alongside you, we're not there yet in our leadership journey, right? So I could go on and on, but I'll pass.
I love that walk thing. I have to remember that.
I
That's
stole that
awesome.
from somebody, I don't know.
So, I really appreciate the context, one, the grounding and the difference between advocacy and organizing and what it's mean to bring people in, and recognizing, again, like not each of us needs to want to be the public speaker to be involved. And so I'm curious for everyone here, folks could just shout out and I'll try to repeat it. A few examples for those of you who either haven't been to an advocacy training or have friends, colleagues who seem resistant to it. What are the things you're learning as why people are resistant to engage? There's no wrong answers.
Fear of retaliation.
Fear of retaliation.
Scared. Yeah.
Scared.
Time.
Time.
Fear of utility.
Fear of what?
Utility, that's not gonna do anything.
Utility.
Fear of utility that's not gonna do anything.
You don't understand the importance of the impact.
Don't understand the importance of impact. Exhaustion. We're all like, yes.
The line between what a nonprofit can do and what a church community can do with advocacy is.
The line, the anxiety around overstepping lobbying requirements, legal compliance, fear of getting not only yourself but your team in trouble, whether you're church, community, or nonprofit, etc. Okay, those are all really important and real examples. So Nicole, I'm curious from you to solve it all for us. But you are a mom of two, you work, and then suddenly you join this policy and partnership, this program, and you're now building your own curriculum. Like, how, for instance, on the time, like, how did you find time? What would you want other folks to know that could maybe bring more people in? That works for you.
Okay. So I don't work. I wanna make sure that that's understood. I'm a homeschool mom. I homeschool both of our children, and that in and of itself with 2 special needs kids is a full-time job. I say it that way. The time, yeah, very, that's a significant one. I also feel like I should sit with a moment. I think everyone in this room can empathize with the emotional toll and exhaustion, I think collectively as a community we feel engaging in politics, or what we think is engaging in politics when you advocate. I feel like that's worth understanding and just bold underline the fear. Like we've heard retaliation, because that's the reality of our world right now, right? When you speak, you leave yourself open to anyone else that wants to speak in opposition, and that's a scary thing. I also like to say that I'm not a fan of public speaking, some people are not. So I hope that at least if any of you are on the fence about it, can take that as empowering, that if I can do this, hopefully, please feel that your voice is welcome, that it's encouraged, that we want you here to balance. For me, I think it's gotta be more because it's personal. And that's where I pull from my love. So everyone in this room, I'm very sure understands that our health, our families, they're at significant risk right now in our world. And so I don't feel that when it comes to my children, I have unfortunately the luxury of leaving. I think Stacey mentioned at the beginning of the panel that no one's coming to save us, right? No one's coming to save us. I have a friend named Tom who says that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And I'm sorry, but unfortunately, that's the reality. Decisions are made by those who show up. I know we're tired. Trust me, we're tired. I know that we're scared. I'm terrified. But I look at my children, and that's where I draw my will. I say, surely I can do something to be that shield, and that's really all I try to do. I think that to answer the question for the line between nonprofits, between lobbying and advocating, last year the summit put together an amazing panel, and perhaps they can reshare that video that broke that down significantly. It was an excellent panel. But what I kind of took away the bottom line was, we come at everything from the issue. So when I come in to talk to a legislator, I'm not coming as, One Voice Coalition, Autism Society. I come on the side of the issue. What is the issue? And I'm going to educate. I'm going to educate and here to advocate. I'm here to talk to you. I'm here to answer the questions you might have. I come at it, and Scott mentioned this before, that you come at it with curiosity. We understand that not everyone's going to agree with us, but if you come at it with that gentle enthusiasm, very much I see that people are receptive of that. So, if you come at it humanly from that human experience, that lived experience, and the doors usually are always open. So, to hopefully give you guys a tools for that. But I hope I answered the question here.
No, absolutely, and I'd love you to elaborate further, because yes, completely agree. What is it about, perhaps, like, the program that you mentioned was through Stacey that allowed you to lean into this work with the constraints you have in your life, time, kids, working, all these other things, and what are tools from that this group can learn to bring their people in?
So I think it was the last session we did, we talked about social capital, thank you, Lord. Social capital, this concept that, we talk about community and we're saying this, right? But at the end of the day, we can have great government programs, we can have spending, we can talk about bills and budgets, but it's not going to be, the director of the agency over there when I have a crisis and I have to go to the ER. It's going to be my friend at church. It's going to be my neighbor. It's going to be my parent. It's going to be my teacher from years ago who still talks to me. It's gonna be my best friend who's sitting, you know, at a table in the back. That's social capital. So if you're talking about doing anything in advocacy, I've noticed that the strongest is when we come together collectively, we lean on each other. So, you know, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of work to do what we do, with research, you know, social media posts or whatever. It's not a singular activity. Nothing about this journey is. But if you find your tribe, and I think if you're in this room, you're of our tribe, talk to people at every other table, please, because I'm very sure that someone out there is more than willing to join you on your journey here. So be on to that.
Thank you. And, you know, Stacey,
Nicole, you each have shared a little bit of how you got into this work and the story that it means for you. And we know that stories, human stories of our lived experience are incredibly compelling and relatable. And so I'm curious, particularly Rachel and Stacey, in your curriculums, how do you focus on centering people's lived experience in the resources that you use to shape leaders, whether that's the role of storytelling or others?
Well, the Partners in Policymaking program, we also have speakers. We have speakers that come from across the United States. We have some that are within the state of Florida. So you're really learning from who I think are the cream of the crop. I mean, we have some excellent presenters. So they're not looking at me speaking. I'm just there to kind of coordinate things. So we start with the history. How politics actually works. And there are politics in politics, right? So that's why you have to understand that piece. And so as we go through that, and we learned about their educational rights, their parents and children in schools, or if they want to be an educational advocate. We have a session on employment, self-determination, and so forth. Session 5, so there's 6 sessions. In session 5, they do a mock testimony. So they've worked with a group. So at the end of the first session, they kind of choose what the main topic they want to stand at a podium and talk about. So let's just say they choose education. So that committee of usually 5 or 6 people will get together during the 5 months and talk about what do we want to fight for? What do we want to advocate for? What's really important to us? And I give some guidance, but normally they've had all this instruction now for a couple months. It's really good, and I just kind of bounce some ideas off them. And then they actually practice standing at a podium as if they were standing before Senate committee, House committee, governor, whoever, to be able to advocate for the thing that's important to them that they have decided as a team. And almost every year, I'll get a few people from, even 1 or 2 people from a group, oh, I don't know if I can work with her. I don't know. And I always will say yes. And that is really the point in this activity.
Yes.
Because guaranteed, there are people in this room who do not agree on maybe a lot of stuff. But when we can come together and look united in front of those people who are making policies, that is what moves the needle. If one of you says, well, I want this, and then the other one said, I don't think that, I don't think she has a good idea, we screw ourselves.
Yes.
And so sometimes we have differences over there, leave them outside, talk about it. But when you're trying to influence a policymaker, that's when it's really important to come together. And that is really how they learn those skills in the class, because it's actually good when they don't agree on things, because it gives them that personal experience of, yeah, I don't really agree with you on that, but we're gonna stand there at the podium, we're gonna act as a group, we're gonna advocate for the thing that we find really important, so that we show that we come with a uniform consensus of what's really important. And in the disability community, we don't look at it as partisan by any stretch of the imagination. Healthcare. Good healthcare is good healthcare for everybody. I will also just add real quickly, I do a lot of advocacy on drowning prevention. And Representative Esmani, who you heard from yesterday, you know, she's been a true force in that. And, you know, seeing her cross party lines, working with Representative Tremont. And so we've got two ends of the political spectrum there. They did an amazing job being able to advocate together. But that is because both Republicans and Democrats went to both of them saying, this is really important. We have to save Florida's children from drowning.
Yeah.
Because last year we hit a record, and we're not looking so good already for this year. And so I think it's really important to do that, and that is one of the beauties of the Partners in Policymaking program, because we educate them not only by some talking heads standing in front of them, but they actually get to do that. And also, the DD Council also brings them to Tallahassee, where we get to go into Senate meetings and House meetings, and they're all encouraged to have personal meetings. But not just when they're there. In case you guys don't know this, when they're up there in Tallahassee, that's only the 60 days plus a little extra stuff, right? And so it's important to go to them when they're home. And for another thing, when they're home in their home office, you'll be able to sit with them for a longer time. Because when they're in Tallahassee, they're flying through meetings, you're lucky if you get 10 minutes. But when they're home, they're relaxed, they're not stressed out, that's where you want to go. And right now is the time. Don't wait until you get towards the legislative session starting, because then they're too swamped.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a question here? Sure, okay. You made me think about, we're talking about unity and us having a united front. I know that that's harder than I think a lot of us want to acknowledge, including how we acknowledge history. And particularly my experience in advocacy and coalition building and people-powered work, particularly for communities that have been historically oppressed and screwed over time and time and time again. The sense I get is sometimes we get lost in the history and don't move forward until we feel like we all are telling the same story, because we've all been burned. And so that's something, when you were talking about having a united front, I hosted a congressional briefing in DC a few years ago, and 2 community leaders got in a fight on the panel in front of 50 congressional staffers about the definition of something. And that's real, and that made me, like, we did a prep session, I thought we were on the same page, and it made me think about, like, where in my strategy, in the coalition I'm part of, do we need to pivot our strategy to not have that situation happen, but like what's actually behind that and how do we get there? And so I'm curious, strategies always have to pivot based on the climate we're in, based on the people who are part of the movement. And so Rachel, I'm curious for you, how are you all pivoting your strategy and your training to meet the moment and meet the different communities you're serving?
Well, that's an interesting and illustrative example you gave, or a trial by fire, I'm sure, for you in preparing for that. Yeah, I mean, I think that we have to recognize that for many of us and the communities we're working with, that there's a deep lack of trust in systems, and that's only growing right now in institutions. Especially our healthcare system, and it's quite warranted, right? It's in so many ways not to be trusted, and at the same time, you know, we're trying to tell people to go to the doctor, listen to, you know, health educators. So I think that, not to tie it back to your original question, but I think it actually marries really well. It is starting with people's stories, like understanding where that mistrust might come from, will help people to find a way forward and to find a sense of unity and as you said, in terms of like pivoting strategy for the moment we're in, I mean, I think we all know, and it's been talked about over the course of the summer, I'm sure, that we're on the, I think Hollywood Williams call it the edge of the cliff of healthcare right now. We're peering over the edge of that cliff and seeing, before our eyes, our healthcare system, being systematically dismantled by profit motivations. And you have to understand that that's the reason, that's why it's happening. And so that means that all the mistrust that people are feeling, that, oh, these people are just taking the money now for my health. Well, that's true in a lot of circumstances. And so I think honoring those stories, I wanted to make sure I mentioned one of our community leaders, Tracy Bowen, who attended this summit last year, is unfortunately no longer with us this year. But she has been a tireless advocate over the course of her life, but she came to Catalyst Miami, or came back to Catalyst Miami rather in 2023 when she suffered from an amputation from about the lower part of her limb. And as she would tell that story, it was because doctors weren't listening to her about what she was dealing with, and she didn't receive the treatment she needed, and because she was uninsured and could not access the care that she needed. So it was kind of this confluence of issues. And of course, she turned that into this incredible journey of advocacy, going to Tallahassee with us, and speaking to her legislators, and sharing her story. And that was a harder and different journey for her than other people. Having to move through limb loss and limb difference was the term that she preferred, and working with Catalyst Miami staff to get insured and try to get some more of the help that she needed. But Tracy had every reason to not trust the system, and she chose to become a voice for change. She wrote a really beautifully penned op-ed. She submitted to the Miami Herald last year as we were seeing all the cuts, the one big beautiful bill, and all the cuts to Medicaid, and she managed to tie in Medicaid expansion in Florida and tie in her stories so beautifully. And so, I think through going through our light program, she was able to find other people who'd gone through similar things she'd gone through, but turned what could have become, deep cynicism and a sense of futility, I think someone in the back said, into, and exhaustion, right, from everything she'd gone through. She managed to turn that into a really powerful story, powerful advocacy journey. So just wanted to honor her memory, and memory be a blessing in this space.
Thank you. Thanks, each of you. I have so many more questions, but I want to give time for the audience to ask questions. And hopefully maybe you'll also answer some of my questions for that. So if you have a question for any of our panelists, please raise your hand if possible. There's one here, there's one in the back. Okay, so yeah.
Hi, I'm Ear, and I'm disabled for him, physical and developmental. And I'm parent of two kids with developmental disabilities as well. So I'm here thanks to our voices for help and others, but I did apply 3 years in a row to get into partners in policy making. And when I eventually asked, when I asked the team why, they said it's because the number of people in the household with disabilities is under consideration, and that's why everybody got on. And year after year, they don't do a rollover for somebody who might be on the wait list and get on the next year. So I suppose my question is, well, first of all, I got the advocacy training from other sources, but I'm still hearing wonderful things about partners in policy making. So basically, what's needed to get the people who most need. Thank you.
Okay. I didn't hear the question fully. Sorry.
Did you hear it? Kind of. She's the one hearing about the training.
Yeah.
Yes, my understanding is the question is recognizing, and for I think many advocacy programs and programs in general, they don't serve, they're not accessible to everyone for a variety of needs, and they don't have spots for everyone. And so, as someone who has applied to the program a few times and didn't get in, how do you all navigate that? Why is there not rollover in applications, etc.? I hope that's.
Yeah, each year it opens up in March 1st and it goes through June 30th. In that particular situation, if you contact me, I can review your previous, because like I said, I don't choose the class, but I can review it. If you filled out on the application that you were already very involved, the committee may have thought, you already got this. You already have the skill set. Because the DD Council is looking to take people who show an interest and initiative, but if you already have the skills, they're gonna throw it on the scale to think, does this person need the program, if they've already gone through the programs. I don't know if that's it, but if you reach out to me and I can come back and have a chat with you, I can take a look at your application and let you know. But yeah, there's no rollover, because we get over 100 every year. So everybody has to apply, or else we would just end up with holdovers. It's tricky. I frankly would want to be one of the 7 members who choose, because they really do take a lot of time and dedication to review those. And the other thing that's really important to know is they have many different parameters. So because it covers the whole state, they want diversity in where you live. They want diversity in the disability that you represent. They want diversity in your gender. The age, if you're a parent, the age of your children. I know I'm missing ethnicity. I know there's like 6 or 7. So it's really tricky to create a class of 25 to 30 that is extremely diverse, who has an interest, but again, looks like they still need training. But I can talk to you about that.
Raise your hand if you have another question, please. Over here, please.
I don't have a question, but I'm gonna be quickly, and I just did the Board of Governors and Policymaking program. I just got into advocacy this year, and between the Governors and Policymaking program and Florida Voices for Health, they changed my life and how I was able to advocate. And I'm not being autistic, and mainly it's parents in the room. It's very intimidating to go in there. I thought my voice wasn't as valued as much as others, but I really changed throughout the program, and a lot of parents respected how vocal I was and different opinions, and it really changed my opinion on self-advocates and families need to work together, it's not divided. And if you even have an inkling to apply, I strongly encourage you to apply. And so I've been encouraging a lot of self-advocates to apply.
And I might add that Mandy came into the program and felt the way that she did. And every year, the class, they vote on who they feel truly represents the nature of the program and has really shown a tremendous amount of growth and potential. And Mandy was recognized by her peers to be that person.
Before we get to the next question, Mandy, I'm curious from you. You said you're talking to folks who have an inkling. What was your inkling to get in? And how can other folks learn to bring folks like you in?
I've been working a little bit with some nonprofits in the area, and I had not gone to Family Packet here, they actually told me, hey, you should apply to this. And so I actually applied based off of a nonprofit I worked with recommending it.
Cool. So for your networking relationships, cool. Thank you.
Who you know.
Yeah, who you know. Absolutely. There's a question there's a question here.
Good morning. I am very passionate about what you all do, and I'm very grateful. I myself live it. It took 16 years for me to know what is available from an autistic child, which is very sad because there's not many people or doctors that actually tell me things or services. And I don't live rural, I live in the city, I live in Hillsborough County. So it's not just rural that has the, how can I say it, the non-education involved in all this. And I think with working, hopefully, I would love to work with you guys to get help in my area because there is a lot of isolation. Because a lot of people either don't want to label their children and let their children suffer. And I see that because I work at the Hillsborough County Public Schools. It's a very sad thing, and advocating for these people will make maybe my area more open to, come out and, get work done on their children that should be, because some of these children are struggling in school, don't understand what's going on with them. Being I have that background because of my son, I have to help these children, I have to educate some of the children that are actually don't understand it. And it's a sad thing, but through your advocacy with autism, I think that we can all help every year trying. I really thank you guys for putting this together. I had no idea this even existed, so I'm very, very, very excited for the future of this.
There's a question in the back.
Hello, everyone. I just want to encourage everyone. The one thing that I have not heard here, this is a wonderful presentation on advocacy. The number one person you need to take very good care of before you help anybody else is yourself. For the airline thing, when you get on the plane and the pressure falls, put the mask on yourself first so that you can help someone else. In my 81 years, I spent 40 of them advocating for working families through the CWA, AFL-CIO, Communication Workers of America. I also gave 25 years to 59 churches in the North Florida area as a youth director. And I started like in my 40s, early 40s, had a quadruple, needed a quadruple heart surgery at age 60. And that's when I learned you really can't burn your family with opioids.
Yeah.
And after that, I started prioritizing my health. Once I did that, I was able to come back and learn and help others become advocates in those particular organizations that I had served in. Now, what I would encourage you to do, get adequate sleep, drink your water, do whatever the doctor says you need to do for your particular health issues that you have with it. And if you don't have any, great, check that. I had to learn the hard way. And I still have to exercise 5 days a week, or my blood pressure will go up, okay? As long as I eat right, learn what you need to do to be able to help someone else. Because I promise you, I have been to a lot of funerals where the person was just used up. And I promised myself I was not going to be one of those. So my thing that I would like to share with you is take care of your health and where you are so that you can continue to do this work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that said, I actually want you to be the ones to assist here. Actually, in the spirit of that, in your trainings, how do you support participants and community leaders in navigating and resisting burnout, resource constraints, and systemic inequities? In 30 seconds.
You're on, Nicole.
Okay. This is a good question, this is a long question. I want to say that I want to echo a couple of points because I appreciate you mentioning self-care and how vital that is. Special needs parents, anyone in our space, when you're fighting the fight, combat veterans will tell you self-care crucial. I agree with Dr. His mention earlier that she had 2 heart attacks. What I tried and trying to convince our partners is that you gotta learn how to say no. There's so much need in our community. We could be drowning in it. And one of the things when you start volunteering, people see, oh, you did that so well. Let's give you one more thing. Surely you could take on, we need your help here. You did such a good job. But you have to, you can't be all. I struggle with that significantly. I say that because my daughter's watching this right now. She's like, yeah, Mom. So, just, you gotta learn to say no. Put yourself, you gotta put yourself first, you gotta take care of yourself.
For those staying in our leadership programs, we're cognizant that folks are facing barriers to participation. We just try to make sure we lower them as much as possible. So, offering language interpretation when needed, offering free food at all of our gatherings that's healthy, making sure we have vegan and gluten-free options. We're not just serving pizza at every event in perpetuity. As much as I love pizza, making sure that, as I mentioned earlier, we have stipends and facilitators who put in so many hours of effort, and we know that there's, opportunity costs for them for the things that they do to support themselves, and transportation assistance, but especially for folks with different abilities who need to make, who may not be able to drive in such a car-dependent place. And many more things. You're just trying to make sure that if there's all these hurdles that you're jumping to get there, that we just bring the hurdles down a little bit as much as we can. Just recognizing that the folks we're working with are dealing with all sorts of, sometimes coming to us when they're in the worst health conditions of their lives. And that sense of desperation is sometimes what drove them to come to our work. We have a lot of, because we're also a service provider, we're speaking with folks at the UN Sylvester Center, cancer patients constantly, who are coming to us for help enrolling in healthcare, and we're inviting those folks still to get involved, right, in our advocacy and organizing, because we don't want to make that decision for folks about what they can and can't do. Maybe right now treatment is what they're focused on, and that's going to be what it's going to be. But also for some folks, this might be the thing that's giving their life meaning while they're going through such a tumultuous time, and maybe even final chapters of their life, that this is how they want to make meaning in this time. And so that's up to them to decide. We just issue the invitation.
I think for many of us, the thing that tends to stress us out the most is fear, right? And when you don't know what's out there, you don't know what the possibilities are, you can be freaked out. So most of the time when partners come together that first session, I'm looking at a sea of freaked out faces, scared to death for themselves or for their children. Knowledge is power. So through the program, we give them the knowledge. We let them know, like that mom was sharing, what are the resources in the Tampa area? There are resources in the Tampa area, but unfortunately, everything remains in this box somewhere, hidden in the dirt, piled over there. But when you know where the box is and you know the key to open the box, all of a sudden your stress level goes down. And the other thing that I I'm so thankful to the DD Council for continuing to have this program in person, because not every state offers it in person. Because I watched them over the 6 months, they come in, nobody knows each other. By month 6, and it's graduation day, they're hugging, they're kissing, they're crying, they're all over each other, because they have found the enormous benefit emotionally, socially, in their advocacy to forming relationships. And I think that I see with my clients, way too many of this young parent generation, so 20 to 32-ish, 35-ish, they're depending upon their phone and social media to be their advocacy forum. Does not work. Policymakers do not care if you call them bad words on X or YouTube or Twitter or whatever they're on. And so we give them the tools to let them know what actually does change things. And when they have those tools and they understand that stress level that was off the chain, now it's not there so much. It's still gonna be there, but now they know they can call Susie and Bob. Oh my goodness, can you help me with this? Where they didn't have that before. So again, I bring it back to community, working together, being able to bounce ideas off of each other and developing relationships, because that is at the core of what we've heard about for 2 days now, about stories. And when we share our personal stories with our friends, with legislators, with our school board members, that is in fact what changes and moves the needle.
Thank you all. Can you panelists around the table? Thank you for your brilliance, for sharing with us.
You do.